Hi, welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green,
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
and we have the honor of being joined today by Lakila Bowden. And Dr. Bowden is a
That's right.
visionary speaker. She is a company founder, and she proudly serves as the COO of iSee Technologies. She's been a featured speaker for Walt Disney Companies, Kraft-Heinz, Verizon, JP Morgan Chase, and the Society for Human Resource Management. You've done it. And numerous other national and local organizations. She this is not right. You retired from corporate America at age 37 and now she now spends her time leisurely teaching thousands of women leaders to maximize rest and revenue by prioritizing self-care and self-celebration. Yay! Thank you, Dr.
Amen.
Bowden. Thank you so much for
Drum
joining us.
roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll.
So, what made you take that leap from
Mhm.
retiring from corporate America to start your own?
Well, I always knew, and thank you for that amazing introduction. Thank you both for doing what you do and creating this platform and
Thank
having me
you.
on your platform. I appreciate that. And to answer your question, it was a pivot. It was a pivot
Okay.
that made sense for me. I always follow my intuition.
Mhm.
And even though my career in corporate was successful, I continued to move up. I continued to have greater opportunities. I was good at what I was doing. I knew that it was time for me to take my talents elsewhere and to use them in a way that could serve a greater cause, have more impact, create
Mm,
generational wealth for myself. That's tough to do in somebody else's job a lot
this
of
is true.
times. Not impossible, but
Takes
I just knew
longer.
there was it takes longer, and I knew there was greater for me outside of corporate. And I work with corporate clients now, but now corporations are my clients, and I
Okay.
prefer it that way.
Okay.
That's right.
So if I'm working with you or another woman is working with you, what are some of the things that we could expect to do as your client?
Yeah, absolutely. So my company facilitates training and development for
Okay.
corporations. We work with a lot of predominantly women audiences, but the trainings can be, they can be mixed audience. But I focus predominantly on high achieving women
Okay.
because I think a lot of times high achieving women, not I think I know a lot of times high achieving women, we are very accomplished, but we don't feel accomplished.
Mm,
Mm.
And that often leads
Okay.
to burnout. And I believe that burnout is 100% preventable for
yes.
high achieving
Mhm.
women. So the work that I do is really I put the battery in your back to let
Mm,
to let you know it's okay to give yourself permission to prioritize self-care.
yeah.
Self-care is the superpower that lifts the invisible loads that we carry that lead to burnout. So
I
I'm
love
battery
it.
in the back. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna walk away empowered. And it's one of those things where sometimes we just need the reminder, right? But
Yes.
it's okay. We need somebody to remind us of that.
So
So, in your practice, how do you go about reminding women? Because we're all about mental health on this show. Karen
mhm,
and Kat,
Mhm.
Conversations with Karen and Kat, KarenandKat.com. Please subscribe. We are all about mental wellness.
Mhm.
How do you hone in on that with the women that you help mentor? What is your method in doing that to get women to actually focus on self and understand that you are worthy of all the great things that you are currently doing?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. So my speaking engagements and my training style for my team is characterized by care, comedy, and charisma.
Mm.
mm,
So we're gonna have a good time because that's when people learn best. It's not a stuffy environment.
Mm.
And I'm also giving my audiences what I call the cheat codes, Lakila's
mm,
self-care cheat codes. And I
Mhm.
call them the cheat codes because they're easily accessible. So you don't have to go on some eat, love, pray journey to experience self-care.
I don't have to go to India
You don't have to do that.
or
Although it's a
Italy.
dope place, that's both. I've been to both; they're dope. But look, it shouldn't. That can feel very daunting, and that can add
Mm-hmm.
to our stress and anxiety, right? But I call them cheat codes because they're easily accessible, and they're tremendously impactful. So
Mm.
these are simple things that we can apply, that we have access to, that don't require us to spend a whole lot of money on. One thing I'm very, very adamant about when it comes to self care, especially for women and high achieving women,
Mm-hmm.
is that self care shouldn't add things to do to your already overcrowded to do list.
Okay.
Because then we don't get to it. It's just one
Yeah.
more
One more
thing to
thing to
do.
check off.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm empowering women with things that they already have access to,
Okay.
but that have impact, and that really help to move the needle on how we feel about ourselves. And again, it comes back simply to permission. That's the foundation of what I do. My coaching, training, and programs, they're all based around a model, a conceptual model that I
Okay.
created. And it's called the Permission to Power Pyramid. At the
Hmm.
base of that pyramid is permission, because after we grant ourselves permission to prioritize our self-care, we're more successful at
Permission.
alleviating guilt that we feel, and actually taking the steps which leads to the second level of the pyramid, which is the practice of self-care. So now we're putting it into action.
Yeah.
And once we've got that action going, we're experiencing peace, right? Because we're starting to see the effects of that. And that's where we get to the top of the pyramid, which is power. And when we're operating from a place of power, that's when we're most effective for ourselves, for the
Yes.
people around us.
Absolutely. So do
I,
you in your coaching of women, do you deal or you see often the imposter syndrome?
Oh, yes. Yes, imposter syndrome is one of the um one of what I call the invisible loads that we
Mhm.
carry, right? Like it's one of those things that, because we're showing up. When you have
Yes.
imposter syndrome, this is the wild thing about imposter syndrome. We can have imposter syndrome and still be killing it. But
Yes.
we feel like imposters, so we're
Yeah.
not enjoying it. We're not giving ourselves props.
And we
We
don't think
are
we really deserve it.
we don't think we deserve it. And it stifles what we could other our impact. It
Mhm.
stifles our experience, right? Like you can be doing all this great work and accomplishing all these great things, but because you don't feel like you should be. And oftentimes I will say it's self-imposed, but we live in a society that makes women feel like we shouldn't be in certain
Yes.
rooms, right? Especially
And
Black women.
listen, and when
We
you
just don't have to
have
adopt it. Go ahead.
a vice president of these United States who studied and graduated from one of the top HBCUs in this country, one of the top universities in this country, with a degree in economics,
Yep.
right? And then she goes on to graduate law school, be elected as a district attorney, the the attorney general of the largest state in this union, then
Mhm.
goes on to be a US senator and be elected as a as the vice president of these United States. And people are still calling her a DEI hire.
Right. Right.
Like,
And we all deal with that. Like she's on a grand stage
yes.
watching what gets we're seeing what plays out for us in our careers over and over and over again, and we deal with it. We deal with it in silence a lot of times. We internalize a lot of what comes along with that, because we live in a society where the hurdles are higher for
Yes.
women, especially Black women, just because we exist and dare to try for more. We're often overqualified.
Overqualified.
So that imposter syndrome is one of the first things that my team, I have a team of coaches, facilitators, therapists, that we work with our clients on. And a lot of it is self-talk. How are we speaking to ourselves? What are we saying to ourselves? It's something that I call, I coach and I talk about something that I call the show enough principle.
Mm.
So the show enough principle says that what you tell yourself about yourself will show enough become a part of your reality.
Show enough.
Show enough. So we can tell ourselves great things. We can
Yeah.
hype ourselves up. We can remind ourselves to focus on positive self-talk because that's going to reflect in our realities. Because everything that, especially for us, there's so many things out there trying to combat that and tear that down. We have to be super intentional
Yes.
about reminding ourselves that we're dope. We just
Mm-hmm.
are. That's just the reality.
I want to add to the conversation Nora, I can't think of her last name, the woman who did the moderating for the VP debate.
Mm-hmm.
And though it was two white women nonetheless,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel, in my opinion, I felt as a woman that they were even being disrespected as a woman.
Mm.
And they said, we need to move on. We have a lot to cover.
Yes.
The candidate continued to overtalk and forcefully work their way in saying what they needed to say. I feel as though that if it was a man, they would have respected the boundaries. And so for all women, what I feel like you're teaching, doctor, is for all women to give permission. Like that resonated with me when you said the first pillar is for you giving permission. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to give yourself permission
Yep.
to be in a space to say, I have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be consequences associated with those boundaries. And I am worthy enough to set those boundaries for my own well-being, which is before you even get to power, before you get to any of the other pillars. You have to walk into a space of, I give myself permission to heal.
You get it. You get it. You're nailing it. And oftentimes I want to touch on this point you made about boundaries because I think sometimes we get into this thought process around boundaries that makes us focus on what we're losing when we
Mm.
establish our boundaries. And there are going to be some people that for the life of them cannot honor your boundaries and they're going to be on the outside of that. And
And they
that's
gotta
okay.
go.
It's okay to grieve those relationships, but still let them be over there on the other side of your
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. But the great thing about boundaries, and this is what I talk about and what I like to promote, is that there are people who want to honor your boundaries.
Yes.
And those are the people we want to attract. So when we live by our boundaries and stick to them, we invite in the energy, the people, the resources that align with those boundaries. And that's an awesome thing. And that's often the part of boundaries we don't talk about. All the good things that come along with our boundaries.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about like when I as a younger woman started setting boundaries for my dating life. This is what
Hello.
I will not tolerate. This is
Mhm.
who I am and this is what I expect. And so because of that, I started attracting a different type of partner, a different type of mate. When I said, okay, this is I need this to be different. So I need to set some ground rules. This is what I'm not doing, and this is what I
Mhm.
won't tolerate. And when I did that, certain people were like, okay, I don't deal with you. And that's cool.
Yeah, go
But
on.
that opened the way for me finding the person who is my life partner, my husband.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Hey, Brother Green.
but I had to say this is what's acceptable and this
Yep.
is what's not acceptable.
Yep.
And it's okay if some people leave and don't
Mhm.
return, but you open up the door for new possibilities.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that. I had a very similar experience in how I manifested and attracted my husband into my life.
Mm,
And he was all of those things and more. So I feel you on that.
yeah, love
Girl,
that.
look. And since we're talking about your personal life,
Let's talk about it.
go ahead. Let's talk about it. Go ahead and dive in just a little bit and let everybody know the power of manifesting that perfect partner, as well as that beautiful baby of yours. Go ahead, give a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I love talking about my husband and my son. My husband's my best friend. We are just, I mean, we are dope together. That's
Mm.
from the moment that we met. It's just been like a magnetism, but also just I remember meeting him and wanting the best for his life, no
Oh
matter what
wow.
happened,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I felt that from him too.
Mm-hmm.
So our love story is it now that's a whole nother podcast episode, but we met when I lived in
We ready for it.
Miami. We may or may not have skinny dipped the night we met. And then we got he proposed a year later and we eloped a month after that. So we were
Oh, I
married within
love
a
it.
year of meeting each other.
Yeah.
And it has been everybody's like, oh, it's the honeymoon stage, it'll wear off. We 7 years in the game, it ain't wore off yet, it ain't wearing off no time soon.
Facts.
Right.
Facts.
And we have the most beautiful little love child that we conceived during the pandemic.
Oh,
Well,
he's a pan
we were
pan baby.
his name, we had a pan baby in 2021. His name is Zaire Asir.
Ah,
And my
lovely.
husband's name is Eric, by the way. But Zaire is just he is what he was created from. He is love, he is
Love.
joy. This child wakes up singing every morning. He got jokes and he's so freaking gorgeous. I love this little dude. And it's my friends laugh at me because before I met my husband, I didn't meet my husband until I was just about to turn 3 weeks before I turned 35.
Okay.
And I didn't want children. I didn't want children. I was like, motherhood is not for me. And really what it was I saw the moms that I knew in my life, in my family, some of my friends having to work so hard and not having the
Yeah.
support and the partnership, whether they were married or not. And I said, I'm not
Doing it
signing
by
up
themselves. They were
doing
married and single at the same time.
at the
Right.
same time. And I was like, why would I do that? That doesn't
Yeah.
sound like. And then I met my husband and
Mhm.
he was an amazing human, an amazing partner to me as his wife and as a
Mhm.
father. I mean, he's out right now with our son. They out doing their thing. And I can
Mhm.
and he loves his role and his responsibilities and he loves being a dad. He loves being a husband, and I appreciate those things about him. So for
Yeah.
my friends to see me do a complete 180 to go from I don't want no kids to being like I have all these shirts with my son's face on them. I get them made. He's 3. He can't stop me. He'll be 3 this
Uh-huh.
month. He can't stop me right now. Maybe when he's like 12, he'll be like, "Ma, enough."
Like
But
you've done the most.
I love this child. And what's also important to me about motherhood, which ties into the work that I do, is I still prioritize myself. This is not one of those situations where, well, now I have this son and this husband and they get everything and I get the leftovers. That
Mm.
ain't the case. I'll
Yeah.
go on a mommy staycation in a heartbeat. I'll
Good for
book a
you.
room in Midtown Atlanta real quick for 2 nights to decompress and be by myself and be quiet so I can come
Mhm.
back and show up as the best version of me for me and they get to benefit from it. I'm a dope mom. I'm a stellar mom.
I
But
love
it's
that.
it's because I
You-
prioritize myself and my
I
self-care.
love that. So, Dr. Bowden,
Lakila,
go, go ahead, Kay.
I'm sorry. That's one of the things. This is the only thing that I hate about virtual. Because being in the same room, we get to hit on each other, love on one another. We can tell when somebody about to say something. You can be quiet. You can't do that virtually, but thank God for virtual because we can record anywhere in the world. So we love
Yeah.
that. But one of the things that I love about you, doctor. I keep saying doctor because listen, it ain't hard getting. It's not easy becoming a doctor, and I want to elevate that doctor. But I love, 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 and one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show is because you deal with high performing women,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and you're able to work with them so that they can connect to self.
Mm-hmm.
Please elaborate. One, how can people get in contact with you? Why is it important to stop from being a high achiever and go inward? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And let people know the importance of doing that. Like so many women have so many issues,
Mm-hmm.
breast cancer and other metabolic diseases that can be prevented just from focusing on self. So
Yeah.
please elaborate with your knowledge and expertise in that space and why you do what you do.
Absolutely. Well, so you also asked how can people get in contact with me? You can find me at lakilabowden.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on LinkedIn, Lakila Bowden. Look up Lakila Bowden. I'm the only one on there. And then I also see my company website or email here, Lakila Bowden at iSeeSolutions.co. Um, for that's my email. But you make a really good point. And this is why I do this work specifically with high achieving women, because I am a woman that's a high achiever. And what my experience was unique about my experience that I've been able to um, really create frameworks and training around is although I was a high performer and achieved all these things in corporate, left at 30, retired at 37, none of that ever defined me.
Mm,
I never allowed any of those things to determine my worth or my value. And I see so many of us make that correlation between what it is that we do and what we've accomplished
yes.
to say that's where the core of my worth is. Everything
Mm-hmm.
that you've done and you've accomplished is important. And you should
Right.
give yourself all the props in the world for that. But you
Yes.
exist, and that's enough.
Amen.
Existing is enough,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
not who
to
you are, it's what you do.
exactly.
Your job.
That's
Yes.
what you do. It's not who you are. Who
Mm-hmm.
you are is light. Who you are is energy. Who you are needs, we're like house plants. We need
Yes.
water. We need sunlight. We need fresh air. We need love,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of those things. And when we can understand that about ourselves, that we are energy, we can flourish and achieve, and our accomplishments can flourish. So
Mm-hmm.
and we have to decouple what we've accomplished with our worth and our value, and that's the work that I do. And the wild part is it results in us accomplishing so much more and it being meaningful to us that
Yes.
we can feel it. uh
Yeah.
that when we get a compliment we say show enough, you right,
Mm,
and we don't caveat it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
so,
me. Woo,
uh,
girl. I need
so
help with that, honey, all day
i-
long.
if you are a woman who is interested in Lakila's interactive workshops, burnout prevention, networking opportunities, please contact her. And again, the email is Lakila Bowden. That's LAKILABOWDEN at iSeeSolutions.co. And
Mhm.
IC is spelled ISEE Solutions.co. And the website is lakilabowden.com. Again, that is
Mhm.
spelled LAKILABOWDEN.com. We got to make sure that people know how to find you. And you can
I
also
appreciate.
find her on LinkedIn
Yes.
because women need to get this information. You have a great quote on your website that says, "Teach a woman to fish, and the village will eat for generations to come."
Yes,
Amen.
I
Because
say that all the time.
we are the foundation, right?
Is
Like,
that came from the original quote, teach a man to fish. All right, he
mhm,
eats for a day. Or give a man a fish, he eats for a
fish.
day.
Mhm,
Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. I always say, well, good for that guy and all those fish he's eating up. But what about everyone else? And what about everything else? We
Hey.
know that women, you teach a woman to fish, and
she gonna teach
everybody
her
gonna
daughter, she gonna teach her friends.
her sons, she's
Yes,
going to make sure
yep,
everybody eats. And that's why what I teach women is how to care for themselves,
mhm,
because then I know my son is watching me, and I don't want him to be like, oh, my mom worked so hard and she struggled and she was strong. I want my son to be like, man, my mom has so much support, she took breaks, she knew how to take care of herself, because he's going to see that. And I
yes,
want him to know that, and I want him to have that, create that space and support his future wife in being able to do that, and the women that he interacts with, whether they're friends or intimate relationships.
mhm,
That's one thing that my husband does extremely well. In my postpartum journey, he has curated so much space for me to come into this new version, the evolved version of myself, because I'm different than I was
yes,
prior to having a son, prior to having a child.
You know,
absolutely.
the thing that, and I'm a, keep it short, try to. Um, so many of us have become parents at an early age, whether we're teen parents, unwed, wed, young, whatever have you. But as women, we never had a chance to stop. It was, let me just say for me, it was straight survival,
Yeah.
straight survival. You got trauma, parenting, marriages, all of life hitting you all at one time. And the only thing you know to do is to make sure
survive.
Yeah.
that you brought in this world have basic welfare needs. And if you can afford any extracurricular activities, that would be great. But they need to have lights, gas, water, roof over their heads, safe, education, healthcare, like, the basics.
Yeah.
And you really don't have time to hold your head up to say, one, take a bow that you're doing a great job, whether you by yourself, what have you, but you're doing it. And then the other thing that you need to pour into yourself.
Yes.
And you don't look up until 30 years later, everybody grown, everybody doing their own thing, and you like, well, damn, what I do for myself?
Yeah.
What do I like and who am I?
Right.
That
Right.
part.
And I want to also let women know that this type of living and work-life balance and finding joy in life doesn't take a lot of money.
It
And
doesn't.
so even when you're talking about self-care, these things do not take a lot of money. You don't have to go spend $200 and $300 at a spa to
No.
do self-care. Self-care could be you just going to the library and sitting in the library enjoying a book for a couple of hours, or just going to the library and listening to an audio book or whatever, or
Queen, sis,
sitting out on your front porch.
that's what I was about
Sunlight.
to say. You ain't even got to leave the house, boo. You could just go and sit in the room, go into your
Yes.
closet. You can do anything that detaches yourself from the rest of the world,
Yeah.
and you can go inward.
Yeah.
And that's simple. You don't have to, that's priceless. And you worth it. Like,
It's
you are
absolutely.
worth it. So
Yeah.
So
you need
I just wanted to say that self-care doesn't mean that you have to spend money to do something.
It's self-care is breathing. It's our
Yes.
intention. It's the people
Going
that
for
we
a
surround
walk.
ourselves with, going for a walk. That's literally when I'm talking about those cheat codes when I'm on stage.
Mhm.
Those are literally the things that I'm talking about. I'm talking about movement,
Yes.
breathing, how we speak to ourselves, our internal dialogue. Those are all things
Mhm.
that constitute self-care. Now, I love a good spa day as much as the next person, but do I have time to go to the spa every single day? Is that always what I need? That might not be
Yeah.
what I need. You might not want to be touched or be around people.
Yes.
So,
look.
Get up in the morning and go to the park. Go for a walk. Or if you can't get to the park, go walk in your subdivision. Go walk in your apartment complex. Or
Or,
do it in the evenings.
or get your girlfriend may call you and say, "Let me feed you." Your girlfriend may say, "Come over here to a place of peace and let me put some good
Yeah.
food in your body."
Like
So
I don't know how to make your situation better, but I can feed you.
I can
That's
feed
me.
I can feed you. So I do want to say, if people do not know about Dr. Bowden, please look her up. Can they see some of your lectures, because you are electrifying. You
yes,
know
so
that.
Are you on
absolutely,
YouTube?
absolutely. Yeah, well, on my LinkedIn, there's clips of me speaking. You can see that there.
You got a
I'm
TED
also
talk.
I don't have a TED Talk yet,
Uh,
but
Okay.
we gonna put it
We're
out
gonna
there
speak
that
that
it
into
just we're
existence.
gonna make
yes,
that happen. That we're gonna make that happen. I'm
but
actually so go ahead.
you've spoken at different fabulous places. I mean, like, you are
Yeah.
no little slouch.
Most of my audiences are corporate audiences. So you mentioned earlier, Karen, in the bio, I've spoken on at Disney. I've spoken at Kraft-Heinz. In next month, I will be speaking at SHRM's conference. What's called Women in Leadership
Okay.
Institute, and it's November 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th in Orlando, and all of
Nice.
the major corporations send all of their top executives there. And it's this same talk. And these are all women who are directors, VPs, C-suite. and above. And, they pull in thousands of women that attend, that are sponsored to come. And I spoke there last year. I'm being invited back to speak again. It's a message that we all need to hear.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. I
Well,
love that for
I'm
you.
hoping that if I don't know if I can be in the room. Let me see if I can get an invite. Look, somebody's flying me out to Orlando. But I would love to be able to have a clip of what you're doing so our audience can see the power
Okay.
behind what you're doing and how important it is needed. Like this, everything that we do on Conversations with Ken and Kat is to make everybody's little slice of the world a little bit better.
I love it.
Gotcha.
This is very important to us, mental wellness and being able to step back from life. Like we're such in a survival mode that we don't take the time back, especially as women. We give to everybody.
Yep.
Yes.
But like Karen always says, you're supposed to give from your saucer and not your cup. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times
Your
we give,
overflow.
yeah,
Yep.
we don't even have any mechanism to get our cup full.
Right.
You
Right.
know, just constantly give and give. So I would love anyway if we can plug into that so we can kind of get some clips so people will know so they can sign up and get what you're able to do to folks. Because you ain't no slouch, honey. You about
No,
it.
I'm no slouch. None.
I
I'm
love
none
that.
about slouching. But no, and like I said, I appreciate you both for this platform, because it is so important to have these conversations and spread this message, and really get people to thinking and saying and reflecting and saying, well, how am I taking care of myself? Who all
Yes.
have I taken care of today before I took care of me?
Yes.
Fact,
Yeah.
Mhm.
fact. So my last question before I let you go, this
I
is
thought the
our
last one was your last one.
no. So for real, this is my for real last question. For real, what do
Uh,
you do for your mental wellness? We'd like to
oh,
share that with our listeners so that people can have an idea. A lot of people don't know what to do for mental wellness.
mm,
So when we do this, not only are we sharing what you're doing, but we're empowering other people that maybe they may adopt that same practice because they just don't know what to do. So please share, what is your mental wellness practice?
absolutely. I stay celebrating myself. Big, small, I don't care. The smallest accomplishment, I will celebrate myself. And that varies. What those celebrations look like, that varies. Most recently, I've gone through a journey of really focusing on my physical wellness,
Hmm.
and I've released 22 pounds.
Oh,
Yes.
So,
nice.
some that I picked up postpartum, I've released that. So I rewarded myself with private Pilates lessons, like,
Nice.
not just group. I'm one on one with an instructor. I found a
Yeah.
sister on the east side who teaches Pilates, and I said I don't want to do it in a group setting right now. I want to do it one on one where I have
Yeah.
focused attention, and that was my reward for myself. But I always reward myself. I will, whether that's getting. I love fresh air. I love being outside. So anything that gets me outside. I was telling Kat before we jumped on, my husband and I just got back from a trip in South Florida, and I just turned everything off. I didn't answer emails.
Good for
I
you.
spent time at the beach, at the pool, being present with my son, but also leaving him with his daddy and me and my girlfriend going out and
Good
just
for
kicking it.
you.
So, for me, I'm not a bag person and shoes and stuff like that. That's just not what resonates with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
me. If it does with other people, do that. But for me, I love experiences and rest and quiet. I'll take a nap. I will take a nap. I'm a
Naps
napper.
are
Fact.
so underrated. Like
Right.
naps are so underrated. So at my 50 plus something age, I love a good nap. And if I could get it in the middle of the day, that's even
Ooh,
yes.
juicy nap.
Some
Just like 20, 30 minutes, get up, be refreshed. So yes, I love that. Kat, you had something else to say?
Somebody texted me when we were doing our live debate. Somebody said, "You look sleepy." I was like, quiet as
They
it's
could have
kept.
kept that to themselves.
Right? He said, "You look sleepy." I'm like, "I'm
Of
not
course it
sleepy."
was a man. He could
It
have
was.
he could have kept that
It,
to himself.
it
Right.
was. That's funny. But yes, girl, thank you so very much for being on our show. And I hope that you come back to our love seat. We took that from
Yes,
our other podcast sisters, so we want you to come back and share with us what you're doing, what's coming up, so people can get plugged in and get the help that they need and
absolutely.
deserve.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Absolutely.
And as always, to our listeners, wherever you can find Conversations with Karen and Kat on your podcast formats, please look for it. You can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, IG, and wherever you can find your podcast. As always, thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.